one of the problems that evangelical churches and Protestant churches have today is that the pastors don't want to preach or teach about stewardship, and the members don't want to listen about stewardship. So this is a real problem. In the Adventist church, some regions are affected with this same problem. So now we are going to spend some time here talking about how the conference stewardship director or the church stewardship director can fulfill in a better way their responsibilities. Now, I am working, as Elder Puni told you, I've been working with this department, with this ministry, since 1969. Now, if you know the history, this department was organized in 1970, 1967. So only 2 years after the General Conference organized the department, I began working with this ministry. I spent 2 years at the local conference and 14 years at the union level. 18 years at division level. And you know, it's not easy to maintain in those positions, you know, because there are many people who are looking for your position. So that's the problem. So this come to a total 44 years as director. And now I have 3 years learning how to be associate director. I appreciate the leadership of Dr. Puni because he's really a good help for me. Thank you, Elder. So all my career in this ministry, now I'm going to share with you. And a conclusion, I can tell you that each conference or church leader need to know 5 very important things. Number 1, we need to know the philosophy of the stewardship, the history of the stewardship, and the theology of the stewardship. Why we need to know these 3 important things? It's because with these 3 things, you can decide what is the best methodology for your territory, for your region. Because not any church or any field or any union or any division is similar to other. It's completely different. So you cannot work with one program that maybe is good in one region and come to the conclusion this is good for everyone. That is not true. But if you know the philosophy, the history, and the theology, now you can build something that will help in the specific region or territory or church. And of course, the 5th is the organizational structure. We have difficulty with the organizational structure because we have too many departments and very little money to put people promoting those departments. So sometimes stewardship is put in with publishing and with children, with the women, with the personal ministry. This is a very peculiar department. You need to produce people who really specialize in these items. And when the stewardship really impart your territory, the result automatically will be reflected in the spiritual environment of the church, in the evangelism, the growth of the church, the financial support, and everybody will receive the benefit. So let's consider briefly these 5 areas. Philosophy. The philosophy explains why we do what we do. Therefore, the philosophy of stewardship explains why the stewardship ministries came to existence. The stewardship ministry department was organized or authorized by the General Conference session in 1966 with the purpose of helping churches fulfill the mission of the church through a spiritual revival. When we talk about stewardship, we need to differentiate the concept, the fundamental belief, and the ministry. So we said, okay, we are going to talk about stewardship. Yes, but about what? About the concept, about the belief, or about the ministry department? When we consider the concept, it's necessary to differentiate the broad sense and the restricted sense of stewardship. The broad sense is this: refer to man's responsibility for and use of everything entrusted to him by God. That means life, physical being, time, talents, abilities, material position, opportunities to be of service to others, and his knowledge of truth. This is what they say, the SDA Encyclopedia. The broad sense of stewardship. The church, with all the departments, is teaching and promoting all the different areas. For example, the life and physical being, we have the health ministry. For time and talent, we have the personal ministries. We have the women ministries, the youth ministries. For material possession, the office of treasurer, we have the trust service, we have the auditor service, we have the ministry, many departments and services. So, in a restricted sense, the word stewardship means one's responsibility for a wise use of the material resources that come into his possession, especially his responsibility to God with respect to tithe and offerings. Sometimes the church, when we see the stewardship director, think automatically tithe and offering. And maybe they invite you, why don't come to my church, or why don't come to my conference to help us, because we have some challenge with our budget. You know why people think in that way? Because when this ministry or this service was organized, was organized as a fundraiser. And what they do was that when the General Conference changed from service to department, people continue thinking that these people who work in the stewardship are the same that they work in the development service is for fundraising purpose. Now, the Church Manual Committee on July 15, 1975 in Vienna, Austria, recommend to the delegates the following. The Department of Stewardship and Development, that's what they named in those years, was organized to assist in the implementation of God's plan of systematic benevolence through the church. The department gives assistance in the planning and organization of the church resources for a completed work. Now, something about the history. I told you that in 1966, that session, a vote was taken to change the development service of the church into the Department of Development. The development service only was working in one division, the North American division. Since 1954, the development service was working at the conference level only and was used to help individual churches finance building projects to help churches and academies. We don't have time today to tell you about how this plan began, but really began not with the Adventists, began with the Protestant churches. We learned from them. And they initiate and promote this in their churches with professional fundraisers. And that professional fundraiser received a percentage of the total amount collected in the church. So it was a good business. Some pastors changed their ministry to be advisors in this specific plan. So the Seventh-day Adventists took the idea and modified this plan. Now, after 1966, the General Conference session, under the direction of the Elder Robert Pearson as president, nobody knows how a new department, that called Development Department, need to work around the world church. So the administration appointed a committee, and the committee discussed the name, the purpose, and the different programs. The new department will have as its primary function the promotion of spiritual revival. Why? Because the General Conference administration want to change the image, the picture of the development service as a fundraiser. So now they decided that the new department need to promote the spiritual revival at the local church level, promoting a spiritual sacrifice in order to boost world evangelization and the development of the church in general. And in that year, they recommend 3 basic programs. Number 1, the combined budget. What's the plan for the churches. Number 2, the development plan. That was the stewardship plan for the conference. And the combined budget and the development plan was linking together. And the number 3 was for the members, the systematic benevolence plan. It's very important to know about the systematic benevolence plan. When Ellen G. White write down about systematic benevolence, you need to take in consideration the year, because systematic benevolence means one thing between 1859 until 1878. 19 years. Systematic benevolence in those years mean weekly donation. Nothing to do with tithe and offerings. Only weekly donation. But in 1878, the General Conference took the action to discontinue systematic benevolence as weekly donation and adopted the plan to tithe and offerings that we have today. So when you see, you read, or you talk about systematic benevolence, if you are talking between 1859 and 1878, mean one thing. After that, mean another thing. Now, the third area that is very, very important is the theology of the stewardship. You see, is what you are going maybe to receive not only the seminar by Larry Evans this morning, but also Dr. Pooney. And you need to be clear in your mind that the start point to begin with stewardship is with God. The same way that it was presented this morning. The theology of stewardship is the fundamental icon in understanding and promoted stewardship. Today, we hear several meanings for the word stewardship in the Protestant churches or evangelical churches, and also in the Adventist church. We have different concepts. What is stewardship? For some, stewardship means tithing. For others, it's a lifestyle. For others, it's giving, spreading the gospel. Our definition of stewardship is in relationship with God. Stewardship is all of me in response to all of God. When I present the seminar about the theology of the offerings, I call the attention of the members that in Genesis chapter 4, when God designed the system of offerings, that was less than 130 years after creation. You know how early? The system of offering was designed by God before the year 130. Is what the Genesis 5:3 said. And in that year, that we don't know exactly which was, had you considered that was no church, no priest, no sanctuary existed? God designed the system of offerings, but there was no church, no sanctuary, no priest. This is a very important knowledge about the theology of the offering. Why God organized the system of offering? Well, you need to hear that seminar in another opportunity. So, our definition of stewardship is all of me in response to all of God. The center here is God. And now, let me tell you, this church, for many, many years, has focused the teaching of stewardship in an ecclesiocentric focus. That means our church is the center. And because the church has a mission, that's why we need to support the mission with tithe and offerings. In 1995, the General Conference called for a stewardship summit. All the division administration were there in connection with the spring meetings. In that year, an action was taken in that summit to recommend to the World Church to change the emphasis to a theocentric focus. What is theocentric focus? God is the center. So that's why you hear today that the General Conference is emphasizing this concept. God is the center. Okay, so now that you know and you understand the philosophy, the history, and the theology, you are ready to define the methodology. Remember this: the faithfulness and generosity of the church members do not take place in a vacuum. Generosity is there when appropriate environment is created. So we need to consider this. What is the spiritual environment in the local church that will motivate or will affect the members? Because if the environment deteriorates, the members are affected. And maybe many of you know how tithe and offerings are going to support independent ministries, simply because the confidence in the church is not good. So it's a lot of money going in another direction. That's why when you organize, when you create, when you plan for a methodology to promote stewardship, you need to consider the importance of maintaining this environment at the local church level. Because this is not only a necessity, it is imperative. Friday we are going to present another seminar that relate more about this issue. But for now we can only consider this. One of the best methods for promoting stewardship is the spiritual revival program. Spiritual revival program. I don't tell you stewardship program. for many of our members, when they hear the word stewardship, they remember that need to visit the grandma or the uncle, or need to do this or that. In the same time, when the preacher is visiting the church for stewardship meeting, is the time that they go to another place. So we don't need to use the word stewardship in order to preach about stewardship. You don't need to use that word. If we emphasize the spiritual revival program, and we recommend this as a system of organization and guidelines for development, all the program and project that the church defines as its main necessity. And of course, as you know, a system is not good or bad by itself and requires emphasis and motivation. Now, you as a stewardship director at the local conference, union, or the local church, there is some general ways that we use for training people: ministerial assemblies, annual worker meetings, seminars with theology students, national stewardship convention, stewardship advisories, annual spiritual emphasis program, stewardship symposium, biblical stewardship institute, stewardship festival, and you can create more than this. Now, a few words about the structure. As a world church, we use the denominational structure in order to fulfill our tasks. That means that the general conference personnel has the duty to support the division stewardship director. It's the main responsibility. And the division director support the union stewardship director. And the union director at the same time support the local field stewardship director. And the local field director supports the local church. But doing this, sometimes the division director organize the training program that can include the union and sometimes the local conference. That's why it's necessary that you request the service of the general conference personnel in advance. We recommend between 9 and 12 months in advance. Because around October, the director of the department is coordinating the different requests. And sometimes there are 2 or 3 requests in the same time. So they need, to be balanced in order to support all the division. So please take in consideration this one. The general conference personnel is not traveling to any part of the world until the treasury give the authorization travel number. With this travel number, we can buy the tickets. If we don't have that travel number, I'm not going to buy the ticket. And of course, the treasury give that authorization with the director of the department authorize that travel. So this is very organized. I am happy with this kind of organization at the general conference in order to be sure that that visit is really going to supply a need in a specific division or a specific territory of the division. So that's why this level of the organization need to coordinate. So the conference need to take in contact with the union with the division, and finally the division authorize the request. If the division not planning to request any service, please tell us. A simple message telling, okay, for the first semester of the 2014, we are not planning to have any event, so you are free. In that way, we can use the budget of that division to maybe a second visit in another division. That's why we can use in the best way the travel budget. What to do? As a conference or church stewardship director, you need to, number one, maintain a permanent communication with the next level stewardship director, because the communication is a two ways, It's not only in one way, it's a two ways communication. Number two, define the main event or your conference or church for the next 1 or 2 years as the list that we already presented. Number three, process the service request 1 or 2 years in advance. Number four, invite the conference president and other offers for the main event of the year. Here is some duties of the local church leader. Number one, education. Systematic sharing of the stewardship principles with the church members. Number two, planning and budgeting. Take a key role in the planning and budgeting process. This is for the local church leader. Number three, finance and stewardship committee. Serve as a secretary or active member of this committee. In some division, they also recommend to put it as a chairman of the committee. Number four, visitation. The stewardship leader is usually the coordinator of any visitation plan organized in conjunction with the stewardship education. Number five, Stewardship Revival Week. Coordinate once a year a spiritual revival with an emphasis on stewardship themes. Number six, monthly stewardship promotion. Encourage faithfulness in all aspects of life, sharing experience by members. And that experience is really a good tool for motivation in our churches. One of the division, the South American division, also prepare a video with different experience that they can use this Sabbath. Number seven, quarterly report. Present a positive report to the church board and business meeting about the progress of the stewardship. Number eight, work in cooperation with the conference, the pastor, and the board. These are the guidelines that the North American division prepare and recommend for the churches. So maybe you can also consider and adopt and adapt some of all of them. Finally, allow me to tell you that the leader is the key in the promotion of this education program about stewardship. That's why we have this kind of meetings. We need to invest some money, yes, but it's necessary. In order to get inspiration, in order to get information, in order to answer some question, clarify, and recommend. Some suggestions are good because our church is growing and growing and growing, and we cannot maintain exactly the same program year by year because the condition may be vary. So thank you for your presence here, for coming, and we expect at the end of this program you will receive some new ideas that you can put in practice in your territory, in your office. Thank you very much.